Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gut Girls podcast. I am Angela.
And I'm Diana, and together we are the Gut Girls.
So we totally left you guys hanging last episode. If you didn't catch it, definitely go back because we were talking all about food sensitivities. But because this is such a hot topic, we wanted to split it up into two episodes so that you could fully take notes and digest all of the details. So definitely have your pen and paper handy. So we talked about last episode why cutting foods might not actually fix the digestive symptom that you're struggling with, and not even digestive. Diana even showed a picture of her skin last episode, and we talked about some of the other symptoms that you can experience from food sensitivities. But this episode, we're going straight to how do we, now that we know that, right? Now that we know what the root cause is to our food sensitivity, how do we actually apply meaning and steps to this to move forward and really go beyond those symptoms? And so, just as a reminder, it's not all about restriction forever. We get so many people that's where they are left hanging is I live this restricted diet forever. It's all about doing it with a guided coach through a temporary season, and then during that season making all the smart swaps, which is really what we're about to dive into, that can calm inflammation and work on healing the root systems underneath. And so I'm going to let you, Diana, kind of dive into why these swaps matters, because you have lived this firsthand in your health journey.
Yeah, this was absolutely my life. When you kind of explained to me, we need to eliminate these foods, I'll be honest with you, I felt lost. Even though obviously you are a great coach and a guide, I didn't have a ton of resources and tools. You sort of gave me a list of foods that I should try to add in, but that was kind of the end of it. And I didn't know how to figure out how to live a balanced life, on the go sometimes, because life is busy, and trying to figure out how can I eat this whole foods diet for the most part, but make healthy swaps when I need to be on the go. And so what I love so much about what you and I've created is how we get to coach people together now and give them tools and resources that they can use. So when they're in this first step and we're like, all right, let's try to eliminate a few things, maybe swap out a few things or whatever, let's give them a little bit of breathing room and space to do this. And how do we strategically do that? And so one of the tools that we created is an actual swaps guide. There's probably a different, more creative word we could say that, but we just call it a swaps guide,
That's what it is.
That's what it is. It's just a swaps guide. And what it is it's actual pictures of foods from the grocery store that you pick up off the shelf or whatever it is, and how you can understand the difference in the ingredients, because that's what we're really looking for. So it's little things like, when we used to have taco night, I would have whole wheat tortillas, or I would opt for like maybe the low carb ones, because, some of those words on there, those highlighted words like gluten-free or low carb or low sugar or whatever. So I was looking for those labels. So I was starting to pull all the pieces together, but it still needed to go deeper than that, right? Because we needed to look at the actual ingredients. And that's when I discovered, thankfully, Siete Foods. So if you have not discovered Siete Foods and you're listening right now, and you have food sensitivities, that's probably a great go-to brand for most people, because they really do a good job of kind of reducing some of those inflammatory, foods and ingredients and preservatives and things out of those foods to make it much simpler on the GI tract. And we find that most of our clients can handle those foods pretty well. And so I still remember that you were like, Okay, hey, there's a Siete shell out there. And so I'm pretty sure, if Siete Foods listens to our podcast, they're going to be like, no, we had more food, more products than that. But that was really the only one that was kind of out there, was just those shells. And that was a great swap for me to learn how to use that for taco night instead of, using the whole wheat shell or opting for that low carb. So it's little things like that. Talking about yogurts, pastas, sugary drinks, what to swap with. Those little things can go such a long way if you're just, starting out on a journey, or if you're far into the journey and you still haven't figured it out. These are some simple swaps that you can use. And so you're not just avoiding the trigger, but you're beginning to help nourish your body and find those keys that really make such a big difference. And we're really trying to do, especially, as we kind of coach you through this, we're really trying to give you all the nutrients that you need. So it's not just about actually swapping foods or whatever, or eliminating foods, Angela. One thing that I love about you and how you coach people, how you coach our clients, is you help them understand that they don't have to just have tons and tons of supplements and try all these new and different foods or whatever, or eliminate all these new and different foods. And, how do I navigate through this? But you're like, you can actually nourish your body and help your healing, the gut lining and that leaky gut that we talked about last time, by adding in some simple steps and some simple foods and the way you eat it and what you eat. So you coach people so well through that, which I think is so cool. And I would love for you to kind of give us some of those simple tips and tricks that you can use. And so if people have their pen, this is the time to start writing.
Yeah, so this was a part of my journey in general, just learn the learning part, right? Like, okay, so food is medicine, right? That's what people say, but I wanted to actually understand what that meant. And so, for example, guys, a food like bone broth, I think it's highly underutilized in the diet. It is so rich in collagen. It's also loaded with electrolytes. I know Diana early in her journey started swapping this out for caffeine in the morning. So instead of coffee, doing this to start her day. This is a huge tool for people in that healing process because of the nutrient density. That's a word that you would hear me use if you kind of were coached by us, is now that we've eliminated, let's look for those nutrient dense foods. Okay, so bone broth is definitely one of those high in amino acids. Glycine, I think about for the gut lining, right? And so amazing, and it's simple, it's affordable, it's in all the grocery stores at this point. You can make your own if you're adventurous. And then if we go into vegetables, I am an advocate on knowing fiber, and knowing which fiber is best for your body. Yes, we want a diversity in fiber, but guys, when you're trying to do a gut healing protocol, you kind of have to ease into that diversity of fiber. There is a method to the madness of fiber. And so introducing those really cooked vegetables that are gentler, like I think of carrots, I think of squash, I think of zucchini, versus a bunch of those cooked cruciferous vegetables that are a little bit harder. And the previous podcast, you heard Dinah talk about onion and how she realized that was a big part of her symptoms. And then going into foods like that are high in zinc. Zinc is so healthy for the gut lining. And so when you learn that, knowing some of the foods that are high in zinc, pumpkin seeds is a huge one. I think of beef, actually, just a good quality ground beef having a lot of zinc in it. And that's essential for gut repair. So we coach you on things like this. I think of polyphenols, which you guys may hear that and be like, what is a polyphenol? Polyphenols, the simplest way to put it, are foods that are rich in the deep reds and purples. So you can imagine that as you're walking through the produce aisle. Let me just pick the deep reds and purples. But I think of like berries and pomegranate. They feed the microbiome. They feed the good bacteria. So if you, again, listen to the previous podcast and you are low in good bacteria, this would be something we would point out to you as maybe something that you're focusing on while you're eliminating gluten, right? Or eliminating dairy. This is what you need to be focusing focusing more on. And we give you that list. We empower you with a list to go to the grocery store with. And omegas, I talk about healthy fats all the time, but like salmon, sardines, if you're adventurous, but also things like chia seeds can be high in omegas. And so those can obviously lower inflammation and help promote a really healthy gut wall. So these are the things that I think really, like Dana was talking about, that empower you rather than debilitating you. Like, oh, I'm broken. I can't eat the foods I want to eat. I can't be like everyone else. It's like, no, you just got to know what your body needs, right? Which food is medicine for your unique microbiome. So instead of leaving you with that smaller plate, we show you how to repair with food, how to rebuild, and actually develop a more supportive plate. That is a big piece of our coaching. And so when you're doing this, the power of doing it alongside the GI map is huge. So again, go back to that previous podcast if you didn't listen to it, because this is where we get these unique, specifics for you, right? So that food sensitivity test is not enough. Even removing foods like gluten and dairy, processed sugars, and even if you brought in some of the foods that I just mentioned, like you've taken a big first step, but it's pairing these with a test like the GI map to really get to, hey, is it my low stomach acid that needs, to be stimulated more, that I need to change my lifestyle so it's produced more in the body? Do I just need to widen my diversity? And how do I do that? The real magic comes in combining the swaps that Diana mentioned in our swap list with these healing foods and insights from a lab like the GI map test. It's the power of those three that really help. And so Diana, you're going to kind of dig a little bit more into this bigger picture of how swaps are not the end goal, but they're the bridge, right?
Yeah. I mean, just to kind of continue on with what you're saying, it's, removing gluten, like we talked about on the episode, that may just not be enough. And that's where you pull all of those things together. And we talked about it. You pull all the different pieces of the puzzle to pull it together. And so if that GI map test is something that you haven't done, that's where you may want to consider doing that. So it's that last piece of the puzzle, and you can kind of figure out where your root overgrowth, or maybe, your stomach acid is decreased, or maybe you have the insufficiency dysbiosis where, Angela talked about on the last episode about not having enough of that good phyla. And so if you kind of pull all of those things together, that's what the GI map test really does such a good job of. And then you pair it with your symptoms. Let's talk about, cutting out dairy. That could help temporarily. One of those things that we say, if somebody's like, they come to us and their symptom is, I am running to the bathroom. You guys know what that is. We're talking about diarrhea, right? We are the gut girls, so I can say diarrhea on a podcast, right? So if you're running to the bathroom right after you eat, then a lot of times we're looking at needing to eliminate dairy. And so that could be very helpful and very beneficial, but it's not the whole picture. We got to figure out how to kind of repair that gut lining. And so that's when we will help kind of coach you through the last piece of the puzzle. And so when we kind of look at all those things, and Angela gives you those real foods to eat and things to add in and kind of how to strategically do that. And then we look at the swaps guide a little bit that we've talked about, and that's what we use more of on the go. So thinking about more of those packaged types foods, like I was talking about, swapping out chips and swapping out the shells that you're eating, and from a soda to this, or, whatever the case may be, where you're swapping those different foods out. And so that's where we want to give you the freedom and the flexibility and the balance, like kind of for the rest of your life. So we're providing you with all of those tools. And so again, trying to pull that whole picture together.
Well, that's also where we talk about the power of community, right, Diana? Where a lot of this transformation happens in a community because you've got people alongside of you telling you like, hey, I found this in my grocery store today. I'm constantly in our community platform taking pictures of things that I'm finding in my grocery store locally here in Virginia to have you guys look for and advocate for yourself where you are. But not even just that, it's people trying new recipes, new approaches with their families, and then coming back into the community and sharing like this was a win. And they're encouraging you to try it as well. Or if you are in that early stage in the community where you're like, man, this just seems really hard, we've got like, I'd call them alumni in our community that are like, no, I came in not being able to eat 10 foods, and now I am, we said this before in a podcast, one of our clients is now pregnant and thriving, and she could only eat those 10 foods to start, but she's an alumni in the community encouraging people like it's worth it, keep going. And so that power of community, I think, really also bridges the gap along with our swap guide. It's not just here's a piece of paper and this is going to be life changing. It's, again, the swap guide, it's the adding the healing foods back in, it's the insights from the GI map, and it's the community. Right, Diana?
Yeah, I mean, again, we kind of go back to my story and we're like, okay, I struggled kind of doing this on my own. I really only had you as a resource. And so that's one of the things that we feel like we've tried to do a really good job of pulling that community together so that we have each other to talk about or to talk to. And it's not just constantly us, because like you said, we're all learning the journey all along the way. And so our members that have joined us, they really do a good job of helping each other out. So we would love for you guys to join us in that membership. And, you know, we have resources and things like this swap guide. I think Angela is going to maybe pull that up for us so that we can kind of get a look at what that looks like. And something like this would have been so incredibly helpful for me in 2017, where I would have been able to come to this and say, okay, now I know that I need to eat whole foods, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, if possible. But, when I'm on the go, what else can I use? What other resources can I have? And you can see there, Angela has pulled up, hopefully you guys can see this if you're not driving down the road, that we have some guides there on our website. If you go to gutgirls.health/guides, then that's where you're going to see the swap guide. The basics guide is free, but then there's a cost to each of those others. But the good thing about this is that when you come into our membership, you have access to not only the swap guides, but all of these resources. And so you get the community aspect, you get these guides and resources. So again, we're trying to provide you with those things that I was kind of missing in my journey. And so that's why we're so passionate about, the membership and being part of that, because you get access to all of these tools. And so when you combine these tools with your GI map test results and really try to, hone in on those food sensitivities and pull all the pieces together, that's when really you'll start to see those sensitivities lessen, and you'll start to see your symptoms lessen, and then it's going to start to kind of fall into place a little bit. And so that's where we want to end this cycle of you feeling so restricted, where you can only have 5 foods, or, for our alumni, kind of member that we talk about sometimes, that, she felt so restricted and now she can have so many more foods. And it's interesting. I do want to mention something, the bone broth and some of those things that you suggested that I added into my routine. My hair used to be very thin and brittle, and that was actually what was going on in my gut, right? And so when you told me to add that, and here we are, fast forward into 2025, I went yesterday and got my hair trimmed, and she has been cutting my hair for many, many, many years, probably a decade at this point. And she's like, Diana, your hair is just so thick. And she even kind of remembered back in my journey. So it's cool to see how that has kind of shown its face a little bit, where it's like, man, my hair was so brittle. It was so thin. And now it's probably thicker than it was when I was 13 years old, 14 years old. So it's pretty cool. And I really attribute that to a lot of this, these lifestyle changes, my healthy gut, but a lot of times the bone broth and some of those foods that you taught me to add in, and it wasn't necessarily eliminating stuff, it was adding in good nutrients so that my body could really have everything that it needed. And we talk about this even with weight loss sometimes, where people aren't getting the nutrients that they need, so your body's not going to let go of the weight. And so again, all these tools are so cool, and you can obviously see that I'm so passionate about it. This is an episode that I love because this is my goal. I want to reach everybody. When I quit my job in the investment business, I was like, I have to share my story because I had tried the food sensitivity thing. I had eliminated those foods. I thought that those were my issues. And I just kind of was in this endless cycle of all these symptoms and all this information overload. And I didn't have clear direction. And so that's what we really try to do as Gut Girl coaches, is try to give you clear direction. We may not always have it perfectly, but we do try to give you some good guidance, and then teach you how to become your own doctor a little bit so that you can understand your symptoms. And, you and I still have things today that kind of pop up, and we kind of have to do our own type of journaling.
For sure,
right, Angela?
we do. And I think that's the beauty of us doing this. We are literally doing this alongside you guys. We've been doing it for years, but it's an ongoing journey. And Dinah, I could absolutely hear the excitement in your voice, and I'll remind people that you have worked so hard. I know you guys don't know what really goes on behind the scenes of Gut Girls, but Diana is so hard at work with organizing clarity, and just like systems. I mean, she is the Gut Girls girl when it comes to like, okay, what is our client going to experience? And I want it to be empowering. I want it to be easy. I want it to work for them. And so, as she said, you could go on our website, gutgirls.health /guides, and you could just get the guide, the swap list guide, and that might be your first step. But to really experience, I think, Diana's heart, and again, what she would have loved to have early in her journey is what is coming in our membership. We have a membership right now, but we are revamping it, thanks to Diana, to have a portal where you guys can log in and have all of these resources, not just the swaps guide, but our other guides, and our personalized, kind of routines that have worked for us, and a Q&A area. Like, I mean, guys, there's going to be a training vault in there. I mean, it is so amazing what Diana is creating, and it's all in our membership for $37 right now is what the membership price is. So you can get started with this guide today for $10, or you could get started and kind of get the community feel with all of that for $37. And so we just encourage you guys to reach out and become a part of the Gut Girls community and membership. And we cannot wait to be walking alongside you as we are talking about today on your health journey. So we look forward to sharing more information with you guys in upcoming episodes.
The Gut Girls podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. We are not acting as licensed medical professionals. Always consult your doctor before making any changes to your health routine.